it's important in these conversations to realize is the difference in operating style or nature or decision-making process versus fundamental flaw with the person. Because we are so generalist कि हमें कुछ आता तो है नहीं, हमें लगता है कि हम सीख गए तो कोई और भी सीख सकता है. But it was like कि कितनी उम्र है तुम्हारी? Right? I was 22 then. He said my experience is 25 years.
Hi, I'm Siddharth Aluwalia, your host and founder of 100x Entrepreneur Podcast. I have today with me Sohail Sameer, CEO of BharatPe, and Shashwat, founder of BharatPe. Sohail and Shashwat, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Shashwat, 4 साल हो गए हैं BharatPe को, right? I think you have become one of the largest payment player across India. $20 billion का पेमेंट आप GMV प्रोसेस करते हैं, राइट? 1 करोड़ मर्चेंट्स यूज करते हैं भारत पे. क्या फिनोमिनल स्केल है जस्ट 4 साल. ऐसा लगता नहीं कि ये 4 साल में बना है, राइट? इसके पीछे मतलब अपने फॉर्म किया था तो क्या सोचा था कि इतना स्केल पहुंच पाएंगे 4 साल में?
नहीं, स्केल तो ऑब्वियसली नहीं सोचा था कितना होगा, बट दैट वाज क्लियर कि हम जब भी कुछ लॉन्च करेंगे तो इट शुड बी समथिंग यूनिक व्हिच इज नॉट देयर इन द मार्केट. सो व्हेन वी लॉन्च द QR code, it was India's first interoperable zero MDR QR code. Because of that proposition itself, it scaled beyond our expectations. When we launched our loan product, the lending product, it was India's first EDI product, daily installment, which again was a very convenient and very new to merchants. When we launched our investment product, it gave returns to the tune of 10-12% to our base. So again, all these products again post when we launched, it was India's first credit on QR code kind of product. So that has been the core philosophy, and I think we will stick to that in future also, that whenever we are launching, either we are a disruptor in the market with something unique underlying proposition, or will not do it. So there has been lots of pilots for products which didn't do well, so we killed it at the right time.
Sohail, when you joined BharatPe 2 years ago, आपको पता था कि you were joining a rocket ship?
हाँ, पता था. I think what Shashwat and the team had built by then was just about started revenue side of the business, but I think it was very clear on what they had done on the QR side was very, very disruptive and unique. It's like when you start the proposition or start the business knowing that you will not make money on payments and have not designed it to make money on payments, the strategy on where money will be made has to be clear, right? So I think unlike a lot of other businesses which were launched much earlier and therefore went through different thought, I think the core premise at that time was money will be made on payments, right? So I think BharatPe started at the right time from a point of view of market starting to realize payments mein paisa nahi hai, right? And therefore the proposition was very, very clear on lending. And given I come from a FMCG background, I think our biggest struggle in FMCG used to be कि रिटेलर के पास इतना ही पैसा है and therefore this is the only amount of product he can buy. And if you're trying to solve that from a retailer point of view, any incremental capital is what he can make 15% over a fortnight, right? A 15% margin, 15 दिन का cycle. And that's the proposition which BharatPe had, right? And therefore it was very clear to at least me that in every business execution risk is there, right? If you don't execute, if our products are not liked by the market. But from a proposition where they had landed by the time I joined, it was very, very clear it's massively scalable.
And जब से आपने ज्वाइन किया, राइट, हाउ हैज BharatPe चेंज? मतलब क्या क्या बदलाव आया, राइट, टीम वाइज, कल्चर वाइज एंड एज अ पोजीशनिंग वाइज आल्सो?
ये बिजनेस इज मैसिवली स्केल्ड एंड उसमें मेरा थोड़ा सा ही कंट्रीब्यूशन है. रेस्ट इज ऑल प्रोबब्ली कॉन्टेक्चुअल, राइट? कोविड हॉरिबल for the world, but great for digital payments, right? And when I joined, we used to do 50 crore of transactions a day, and which was meaningful scale. मैंने कुछ किया नहीं, कोविड खत्म हो गया, खुद ही 100 हो गया वो. Right, so sometimes you have to also be in the right place, right time. When business starts scaling that fast, that naturally means something's changed in the company, right? A lot more people start believing in the business. A lot more of your products start making sense, right? If you are helping our NBFC partners underwrite merchants on the back of payments, suddenly the payment volume became 2x, right? So a lot more merchants became lendable. And that sort of builds natural conviction in the company, whether it's from an investor point of view, whether it is from the team point of view, or whether it's from the industry participants point of view. So I think a lot of the change is actually driven to that, right? So I think the second thing which I would probably give a bit more credit to me than this market dynamic is when the team started this, the only piece of the puzzle which was missing was the mindset of the retailer, right? And anyone who comes from FMCG, again, this is contextual कि मेरा background था FMCG में, I think that sort of closed the loop in terms of sort of capability. I think me sort of understanding the consumer or the retailer, in this case psyche, basically helped us sort of close the full loop and therefore launch a lot more products which were probably direct hitting, helped us jointly kill a lot more products sooner, saying this will not work in this context. And then I think that also in a way was the start of the transition of becoming sort of more professional run, right? So, but that was a joint call. It's not कि मैंने किया. Every company starts as a founder-driven company, and it helps the company very quickly take decisions, very quickly move on. At some stage, you have to do that transition, right? So, my joining BharatPe incidentally was around the time when we started making that transition, and sort of I think between Shashwat, me, and the rest of the team, I think we managed that reasonably well. Now we have a really hardcore, hard-hitting sort of professional team in place, and that comes with its own set of advantages, especially at scale levels.
बट मोस्ट ऑफ द कंपनीज में ये कुछ मतलब 5 से 10 साल मिनिमम के बाद होता है, राइट? भारत पे ने जर्नी काफ़ी जल्दी अपनी जर्नी में.
So I'll tell you, so the scale has also been very early, right?
Yeah.
How many companies you've seen which has scaled this much,
Yeah.
especially in the fintech within this amount of time? I'll not take credit for everything. Basically, there are lots of external factors as well. UPI coming into picture. We were early in realizing that UPI will be the future and therefore started building on top of it. But we grew along with UPI. UPI has been into tier 3-4 cities, in villages. With Jio coming in, giving internet access, with demonetization, with the COVID doing contactless payments. So all of that has helped in the scale. But whatever it is, the scale has been so fast that we had to adopt to it, we had to catch up to it, and we're still catching up. I'll be really honest, we'll never be done with catching up in this space, is what we believe. But yeah, we the founding team and the founders were realizing that it is now time to go into professional setup, and we started building the CXO layer, and then Sohail came into the picture.
So you are 23, 24 right now?
I'm 24, yes.
And Sohail आप 38 के करीब.
38, yes.
So जब आपने join किया था, you were 36 and you were 21, right? So very like I would say dynamics would have been कि right founder trying to say कि take this much control, but थोड़ा सा मेरे पास ये तो रहने दो.
Not to be honest, no.
Yeah.
I think one thing which we've done always well is we've never got into ये मुझे control करना है या तेरे को control करना है, right? So whoever is potentially better suited to handle that handles it. Whoever has bandwidth at that point of time handles it, and whoever raises their hand कि ये मैं कर लेता हूँ handles it, right? So and that's how I think you have to as founders, and like I'm counting myself as sort of the the core team. I think if a business is growing this fast, you have to be fungible in the roles you play. You can't operate as कि मैं तो सिर्फ marketing देखता हूँ क्योंकि मुझे वो आता है, right? And that's the job for the next level of team to be really good at what they are doing. But the top 2-3 folks who are whose job is to steer the company in the right direction can't take a very narrow view of their role, because the market evolves so fast and the business grows so fast, right? What is relevant today will probably not be relevant 6 months down the line, and hopefully now we're at a scale where things will have longer runways. But at least the time I joined, we were just about I think we used to do $2-3 million a year type revenue, right? Very, very early days. At that stage, every 3 months we had to relook on what we were doing and if it is right or wrong, right? And therefore, any single person saying कि ये हमेशा मैं ही करूँगा is detrimental for business, because you will have 5 other things running at every point of time, right? So I think we've created that flexibility, fungibility, trusting each other's decision कि ठीक है, मतलब शाश्वत ने देख लिया है तो मुझे देखने की जरूरत नहीं है. And I think one thing which you will also, and given you've been an entrepreneur, you realize कि कोई सही decision गलत decision नहीं होता, right? 2 महीने में समझ आ जाता है if it's a good decision or not. And I think one thing which Shashwat talked about, we've consciously been good at, is things which are not working, correcting for them, right? गलतियां तो होती रहेगी. First of a kind product launch करने की आदत है ना, तो not all of them will fly.
तो एक चीज़ मैं ऑब्जर्व कर पा रहा हूँ कि very less attachment to either roles in the team और टू व्हाट यू हैव बिल्ट. मतलब फाउंडर्स को, मैं फाउंडर हूँ, राइट, प्यार रहता है प्रोडक्ट से और अपनी आइडेंटिटी जोड़ने लग जाते हैं.
I'll put it in a different way. So now in a professional setup, the CXOs and the department heads, they may be specialists in their role.
Yeah.
That is fine. But we're talking about amongst us, amongst the founders and founding team, we are more of a generalist kind of a role we do. Sometimes we look at this, sometimes we look at that. It gives you fresh perspective on things, कि किसी को दिखता है, किसी दूसरे बंदे को अलग तरीके से दिखता है, and it keeps the excitement alive. And you're right, we have been consciously not emotionally attached to any business line or any product, rather than we focus on solving for business and what is right for the company. So that kind of maturity, you can say, is there from early days.
Hi everyone, before we begin, I would like to share that this podcast is brought to you by Prime Venture Partners, an early stage VC fund led by Amit Somani, Shripati Acharya and Sanjay Soni. Prime is often the first institutional investor in category defining tech startups in fintech, SaaS, healthcare and education such as MyGate, Quizzes, Planet Spark, Bolt and Clip. To know more about Prime, visit primevp.in.
Yes, Sohail, you have been part of McKinsey, right? And there you are taught to not emotionally attached to the problem, but just be a problem solver. तो वो चीज़ कितना help करी, because it was scaling so fast. When you joined, valuation was 450 million, approximately today is $3 billion, almost 6x. And there are only very few fintech companies who are valued at or above $3 billion in India.
To be honest, I think McKinsey is a very, I don't even know, half the time मुझे लगता है बिल्कुल help नहीं करता. I think, to be honest, I think it's being unfair. I think McKinsey teaches you a lot on how to handle pressure. It teaches you a lot around how to sort of make the best of whatever limited you know, right? McKinsey teams typically do like 3-month projects, right? So you will never be in a place where you know more than the client yourself. I think having the ability to work with limited understanding of the space and with limited data and yet sort of take decisions is a soft skill you sort of subconsciously learned, right? So it's very difficult for me to put finger on कि McKinsey ने ये सिखाया and therefore I am sort of where I am. But there is so much of McKinsey in my natural behavior. No matter how much I sort of disassociate with it, it sort of comes through, right? And like how you handle teams, right? No one is reporting to you. अच्छे नहीं होगे तो 3 महीने बाद तो तुम्हारे साथ काम नहीं करेंगे, right? So, and some of this naturally sort of helps in the business, especially in a fast-growing, high-pressure setup, right? I don't think we get disappointed the month we grow less than 10%, even at this scale. So that pressure is bound to be there. I think hopefully that experience of McKinsey helps me handle that better and hopefully some of that translates to the team. But to be honest, बहुत difficult है यार McKinsey में decision making तो तुम सीखते नहीं हो. मतलब decision making सीखते हो, उसको follow on करना तो नहीं सीखते. And I think that was my biggest disconnect at McKinsey, and that's what I probably learned in my consumer journey, because that was also 0 to 1, not our own capital or not capital raised by us, but in a way similar setup, right? So I think that's taught me probably a lot more, and a lot of credit I always give to Sanjeev for giving me that opportunity कि you launch. Consumer आता नहीं था, right? So he said, you launch, I trust you. And I think that sort of really sort of stint I give most credit to.
There were few tough times at Bharat Pay, right? And today you have like come out like with flying colors out of that. पर उस समय कैसा महसूस कर रहे थे, right? कि it was like really hard, especially on both of you. And team को तो face जो दिखाना है, वो किस तरह का face दिखाना था?
I think it was fairly easy. The process took its own course. We were not involved in the process. It was driven by board and the external folks who were engaged. So yeah, I think it was business as usual as well, and the numbers were growing anyway. It's not like the team was not working and they were not. But yeah, there were a lot of one-on-ones with the team. There was a lot of all hands on decks to sort of keep them apprised of how things are changing.
And I think all of this weighs you down when the business is not growing.
Yeah.
I think the beauty of our tech-first business is even if like Shashwat and I are not around for 3 months, long-term, next क्या launch करना है, that may sort of get hampered. But existing business will keep on running, right? And as you kept on growing 10% month on month through the chaos, actually at some points faster, it auto-builds conviction and rebuilds conviction, right? Whether within the team or with sort of our investors and the external world, right? To be honest, as Shashwat said, it was a process. It had to take it 6 months. It was taking maybe 10% of our time, but the rest of it was business as usual for us.
Sohail, ये innovation का जो DNA है, right? आप भारत पे में every 6 months you are launching one product, और इसके पीछे कितने failed products हैं किसी को पता भी नहीं. So how do you as a CEO come into this picture of innovation, like, and just helping the teams innovate faster and taking go to market faster?
I think it is 2-3 things, right? And it's not only true for me, it's equally true for Shashwat and some of our sort of leadership team. Innovation can't be driven by one person, right? Innovation is a natural process which comes through you spending time in the market, figuring out what is happening, you sort of reading probably tons and saying what are other markets going through which are in sort of similar trajectory. And innovation sometimes comes from stupid conversations on a coffee table on what is working or not working in a product. I think sort of my job is to basically back some of those, right? My job is to basically say this innovation I support, this innovation I don't, because it's let's say a distraction on the bandwidth we have on tech, it may be a distraction on the capital we have, or I fundamentally don't believe it will scale, right? But again, that's a conversation process, right? And I think the general mindset is let innovation happen and not say no to sort of new ideas until they are a significant drain on either capital or people. Because we've always taken a lot of pride in, we still operate as a very lean company. Most people at our size will have tech team of 600 to 1,000 people. Our full company is 600 people, right? And this includes a heavy feet on street nature of our business, right? So therefore, if it is not going to cost us a lot of people time, or it is not going to cost us a lot of capital, which is obviously always to be protected, there's no harm in people letting experiments run, right? So the only thing you've come up with the idea which you believe in, you have to say, I will get it done. And if the capital requirement and people requirements are less, so why not try it, right? 3 months mein samajh aa jayega yaar. I think when you operate with that mindset, teams also become actually a lot more thoughtful about ki chal raha hai ki nahi. Then they don't, like, at least me and Shashwat are not wedded to individual products. Once you let sort of the wider team say ki jo tekho acha lag raha hai tu kar, if you believe in it, I will support it. They are also the first ones who will come back and say ki nahi chal raha hai. And that's sort of the DNA we operated, right? So at any point of time, there will be 10 experiments running in the company. Today also, like, that's never stopped, and I don't think that should stop for like foreseeable future.
What are the few things that you and Shashwat disagree on? And कई चीज़ों में ऐसा होता है कि यार बिना बात करे अंडरस्टैंडिंग आ जाती है.
Also, to call out things would be very difficult, but in scenarios ki lots of things ki we don't even need to discuss ki it's we are on the same page. But in some scenarios we debate with pros and cons. It's fairly objective, fairly simple. But the one thing we make sure is when we go out of the room, we are on the same page.
You disagree and commit.
Yeah.
And that's how companies are run, right? Even the board process is in a way that if you have a board, you may not agree with everything the board says, right? But at the end of it, you all do your best, make your point, and basically whatever the significant majority believes, then you basically say we will get it done, right, to the best of our ability. I think at one level, as the senior team, you have to operate in the same way, right? You may have the board to manage, so, and therefore it has to follow a natural decision making process. There are some things which Shashwat will always be better than me at, so if he is looking at them, I don't need to, and vice versa. And then there are always things which are, and these are typically things which will require heavy capital, heavy manpower, deploy karna hai ki nahi, ye naya product banana hai ki nahi. 30 tech engineers required for next 3 months, right? So those are the conversations we will sort of debate, and with whatever best we know. And sometimes it's still a gut call, and then you take that gut call, right? But I don't think on a general basis there is a lot which we would disagree on. I think what happens is when you have everything at stake for at least both of us, you trust each other on intent, right? You know that I will trust blindly that Shashwat will do everything for better or bad way, and he will probably trust in the same way. And then you also know कि कुछ सही नहीं होता, गलत नहीं होता. What you make out of it and how do you execute it determines a lot more. So in many cases where one of us may not necessarily be fully aligned also, but the other person has huge conviction कि ये चलेगा, तो करते हैं ना, मतलब. I think my decision can't be better than anyone else and vice versa, right? So I think therefore we found a way of quickly debating and moving on with the decision, and then both of us will support it.
I think it becomes easy as long as the alignment on overall objective. You need to solve for business, not for anything, personal or something emotional attachment to any product or anything. That should be easier process.
Coming on to personal side, and I'll ask you for him and him for you, right? Do the role reversal. What are the strengths and weaknesses of Shashwat?
I think lots of strengths. मैं बहुत जोक मारता था कि मेरे से अच्छी मैथ्स किसी की नहीं है. Like I running joke कि if you give God a calculator, he will be slower than me. I think Shashwat also has a very good ability to do a lot of 0 to 1. Seen like him handle at least the swipe launch. We knew nothing about credit card, debit card acceptance at that point of time. We just, I don't know how many experiments we were running on commercial models, everything else. To be able to sort of scale that while sort of continuing to experiment and evolve your model is, I think, a skill which very few people have. I generally believe generalists and younger folks have that skill a lot more because there's a lot less baggage of what I know, right? And Shashwat does that really well. It's also a lot more mature, and like I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness for his age. So
a lot of less partying.
No,
That's not related to maturity.
That's not related to maturity, to be honest. I think maturity is knowing when to party and when not to, right? Partying is not maturity or not. And of course, many more. I think only thing I would sort of say as a weakness is Shashwat by design is a bit introvertish. And that's a character trait, right? Most people don't believe it. I'm an extreme introvert. But like most people laugh like this. I'm actually an extreme introvert.
Doesn't look like.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, but because it's learned behavior.
Yeah.
My job requires me to talk to tons of people. It's energy drain. And
Consultancy made you like.
yeah, it forces you to talk to tons of people, right? So, and people who are close to me now will notice it because किसी से डायरेक्शन भी पूछनी होगी ना तो मैं साथ वाले गुरु गया पूछ के. I just not because मैं नहीं जा सकता, but I just it drains energy out of me. I think to me that's a learned behavior, and I think Shashwat is sort of going through that journey, right? Because I think Shashwat's natural reaction is कि मैं सोच लेता हूँ मैं solve कर दूँगा या कुछ पसंद नहीं आ रहा तो बोलेगा नहीं जब तक it goes above his head, right? So I think that's something which, of course, over time he will become better and better at. But apart from that, I think he's sort of a brilliant person to work with.
And Shashwat, same for Sohail. What are his strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, so Sohail's strengths are, of course, too many. Over the past experiences, experienced a lot of in the generalist trait that we're talking about. He's been through that. Like he's been into D2C when he didn't know D2C, and he came into fintech. We didn't know fintech, and then adopted to. So I would say adaptability is one of that. Again, analytical mindset. Analyzes things quite well. What data should we look at and take decisions? That is great. Public speaking is obviously, as you say,
but it drains him.
He's become a natural speaker, I would say, and many, but this is just few I can remember right now. And weakness, I would just say, he's too good nature-wise, to handle.
फटाफट हाँ बोल देता है तो ये करना यार कर ले.
To handle tough conversations or to take tough calls sometimes. So that is something I think. And he also realizes.
Yeah, that's also the nature, right?
Yeah,
I said that I'm introvert. Introvert people by definition hate confrontation, and that's my own.
So whenever he wants to confront, he'll try to do it on WhatsApp or chat rather than in person. And when you meet him in person, you not see even an iota of conflict on the face.
Dear listeners, before we dive further into the podcast, I would like to welcome Prashant Kanti, Head of Product Management at Zoho Payroll and Zoho Books. Prashant, where do founders usually struggle with payroll and how can they fix it?
Thanks, Siddharth. Founders want to give their best for their employees, and they realize very early on, right? Payroll and compensation is a very, very important part of what they are going to handle. However, what we have seen is where they miss out is usually on finding out the best solution that can grow along with that business. And that's where, for example, the payroll complexity can grow very quickly. Initially, when you have just 4 or 5 employees, that's okay. But when the employee size count keeps on, the payroll complexity grows by leaps and bounds. So it's best for founders to invest in payroll automated solutions right at the very start. So they have one less thing to worry about. Thank you, Prashant.
Dear listeners, you will find more about Zoho Payroll in the show notes. Now let's further continue with the podcast. So, ऐसे क्या processes रहे, right? Because 0 to 1 when run or 0 to 10 in this case, is mostly when founders run it, is done pure hustle, right? Pure energy. And then when a professional CEO comes in, they try to bring in more processes. So did you choose the processes part or या आप भी hustle का part हो गए? मतलब कैसा रहा?
Actually, मैं तो hustle ही हूँ by definition. अब मैं किसी से बात कर रहा था, ये बड़ी interesting conversation. 0 to 1 वाले लोग अलग होते हैं, 1 to 10 अलग, 100, 10 to 100 different. मैंने तो realize कर लिया, मैं तो like maybe 0 to 1, 1 to 10. I can't do 10 to 100. हम सभी नहीं कर पा रहे, but at one level we've learned multiple things. I think every skill is learnable as long as sort of you figure out 10 to 100 भी कर लेंगे कभी. So I'm not by definition very high on processes. There are processes need to help business move faster towards the end goal, right? At some stage they will slow you down, but as long as you're not doing this zigzag path but are still going straight, it still can mean faster outcome. I think at least I'm very thoughtful about if it is process, it should simplify someone's life, not complicate it, right? So I think a few of the processes we've implemented over the last couple of years are only around, for example, budgeting, reviews, how decisions are made, like how procurement is done, for example, right? Because there is lots of value there. Process has to either systematically add value or has to make you faster. If it is neither of the two, at least I have no respect for that process, right? And therefore, I think we've moved a fair bit in the last 2 years, but I think by and large, every process we've implemented may have slowed us down slightly, but I would not say we operate still probably at 80 to 90% of what we were probably 2 years back in terms of speed to market and action, but has just managed to ensure that the misfires we have along the way become lesser and lesser, right? So that's the intent of the process. I don't think we've gone other extreme as some more sort of established or some more people who run large companies would have gone over a period of time.
So there will be processes coming into picture with corporate governance being the priority for us and preparing for hopefully the public IPO. So there will be into picture, but it's the art of balancing between processes and speed of execution, because you don't want to let go of the growth or the execution speed as well. Also, processes might help in structurally taking on some new agenda. Let's say we want to, drive the agenda of decision making only after looking at data or, certain analysis. Then have the processes of including data folks whenever decision is made. So those kind of things will help in the business. At the same time, it should not slow down the business. So that is, I think it's the art of balancing the both, but we are sailing through that.
I think the core DNA of the company has always been innovation and speed to market. Anything you do can't come at a significant cost to that, right? And I think that's something which we are very conscious about. Anything which makes your decision better, anything which makes your innovation sort of more successful, anything which ensures that you spend lesser money in testing out your innovations, we are all sort of very welcoming of. Beyond that, we sort of try to manage process at a minimum.
तो founders के लिए right, कईयों के लिए 0 to 1 जो होता है, they get the timing extremely right, तो many are like one hit wonder. But भारत पे के केस में 0 to 1 आपने कई लगातार नेल किया है, मतलब इसको, तो उसके पीछे क्या थॉट्स हैं? Like why do you nail 0 to 1 so well? अगर फाउंडर्स को पता चल रहा है तो मतलब रेसिपी है राइट फॉर सक्सेस कि VC जाके अपने सारे फाउंडर्स को दे दें.
No, I think it's not 0 to 1 is in our case not कंपनी के साथ अटैच नहीं है 0 to 1. It is attached to
Product level.
particular product, right? कि नया product launch होता है तो आज भी 0 to 1. But I think I answered first, right? कि whenever we launch, we are very cognizant of the fact कि why should this work? We play the devil's advocate ourselves. Why will someone take this? Why should it work? It has to be a disruptor. It has to be a first of its kind. Maybe it's the same thing, right? Credit loan is the same thing, but some caveat will improve your user experience. Daily installments adds वो जमीन आसमान का फर्क पड़ गया मर्चेंट के लिए कि रोज इंस्टॉलमेंट कट जाता है और मेरा लोन रीपे होता है. So those things we try to think over, and one of the things that helps is we visit a lot of merchants also. We talk to them, we go to call center and take feedback from there, what is coming from merchants. It will be surprising that that a lot many feedbacks come from call center as well. People call inbound that you should do this, you should do that, it will be helpful to us. And a lot of those things have failed as well, but the thing is that is our source of sort of getting insight, what should we do next.
And to be honest, I don't think we do 0 to 1 better than anyone else. We do a lot more 0 to 1s and we kill a lot more 0 to 1s very quickly. I think the companies which are multi-product companies like ours, if they struggle on 0 to 1, it is a function of they getting wedded to the product idea too much, right? Like in our type of business, it's full tech run yaar. If it is a good product, in 3 months it will get million users. नहीं है दिख रहे तो नहीं चल रहा ना. And like again, I'm saying broadly, I'm sure every product has its own journey. I think the core focus or the core where we get it right, in my view, is killing very quickly things which are not working and then doubling down on what is working, right? 0 to 1 experiment, like one to is a sort of a place, right? Well, there is no one, I don't know what is one. Things which are showing initial promise, we are very quickly able to commit more resources, capital, people, our bandwidth to it, to really get it from that stage where दिख रहा है चल सकता है to कि हाँ दिख गया चलेगा. Now it's only about scaling. I think that journey we do very quickly for products we believe in and products which have given initial signs of success.
But distribution muscle आपने काफी solid build करी है, right? What is behind that?
I think initially, see, none of us knew how to distribute. So मैं बैंगलोर शिफ्ट हो गया था और फोन पे पेटीएम ऑफिस के बाहर खड़े रहता था कि जो बाहर निकलो भाई कैसे कर रहे हो. The idea was to, how do we grow the network or the passion to build the network. It was never key, the approach is never the rocket science. I think the passion, the drive for it, we made processes, we made a rule book. Once I was done with the launch of One City, we made the rule book to sort of replicate it along the way and to sort of have the same drive put into your team or the next person and the person next to him, contributing to the overall objective. That has been, I think, the hustle and the rigor and the drive has been the key factor for that. Later stage, we started innovating with the app that a person can use to onboard a merchant to sell the different kind of products. Right now, I would say our FOS app, which is Feet on Street app, is very robust and very advanced. Detects fraud, it helps in cross-selling, it recommends which merchant to sell or no, and then helps a lot in productivity as well.
Distribution is also driven by a good product. Like अच्छा product launch करोगे तो हो जाएगा distribute. When Shashwat and the team launched QR code, it was interoperable or vocally interoperable and was zero MDR. Right? It's an incredible benefit to the merchant, right? You just have to then explain to him and he will use it, right? And he will propagate it to 10 other merchants. Distribution is the effort, hustle, hard work, blood going into it. But no amount of hustle can sell a bad product. And I think therefore the product thinking is what I will give a lot of credit to. We would have probably got to the same distribution if we were not as good at executing, maybe in 6 more months, maybe in 12 more months, right? But I think the original thought on what is different in your product and how will it change the life of someone? How will it sort of prevent a guy who's using QR code to save 30 bips to like 100 bips he was paying on interchange at that point of time or as MDR at that point of time? And how will your business model still sustain, right? So that was the real innovation. Once you got that clear, it was a relatively easy sell. And even though आज सब कुछ table stake हो गया है, सब MDR zero हो गया है, but to be able to launch that first, to be able to create that impression, still a lot of merchants are early merchants. They haven't dropped off right? Because they remember we were the first ones to offer it free, right? So there's a huge value to a great product. Getting that right is probably 80% of the job done.
Yeah, so we've never given a product for the sales team to sell where it was not a differentiator or it was the same product which 10 other company has. So yeah, we've never, it's a given for us.
तो सोहेल जब आपने ज्वाइन किया राइट तो आपकी सबसे पहली प्रायोरिटी क्या थी?
Hiring, and I think there were 3 priorities at that time. I think one was leave aside my own journey because it was also transitioning from founder run to sort of professional CEO. You have to build your own trust with the team, right? So I think that's sort of a personal journey, but I think from a business point of view, it was just about launching and just about had launched lending, but it was not scale. We were launching Swipe at that point of time, and then we were hiring at that point of time because I think CXO level was just starting to get built. Thankfully, sort of Shashwat took Swipe completely off my plate, and then I could spend a lot more time on the other things, right? But I think the foremost was sort of to get the team comfortable with the fact that someone external, someone who's run largest companies can come in and sort of ensure that the pace of how we operate doesn't suffer because of that, right? And that conviction in the team is what I was sort of spending a lot of at least mindful energy on. अच्छे CEO हमेशा 100 दिन का प्लान लेके आते हैं कि मुझे ये पहले 100 दिन में ये तो करना ही है, because if you don't do that you don't get second opportunities, third opportunities, right? And that was by and large the focus. Get team comfortable, get one great product out there. We thankfully got two because Shashwat took over the other one, and then since then it's sort of been much simpler.
What are the things जो आपके biases थे और क्या क्या unlearn करना पड़ा जो आपने जान के? एक तो ये हो सकता है which I can think of, right? I'm completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, 21-year-olds are running the company, so they might be hit with one product, but there's still things to discover.
No, to be honest, no. I don't think I generally operate from a lot of biases. I think Shashwat was hard 21 then, but I had also become CEO of a company and took it public of someone else's company, right? अपनी company तो you can argue कि आप 18 साल में भी शुरू कर सकते हो, 35 साल में भी कर सकते हो. कोई तुम्हें अपनी $3.5 billion revenue की company चलाने को दे दे at 31 is actually a lot bigger leap of faith, right? And I've always had mentors who trusted me when I was probably the youngest person in the room, the most junior person in the room, probably knew the least in the room. And McKinsey का तो पहले दिन में ही तुम्हारा level set हो जाता है. My first client interaction in McKinsey, not getting into the client name, but it was like कि कितनी उम्र है तुम्हारी, right? I was 22 then. He said my experience is 25 years. And that's always stayed with me, right? Because by the end of the 3 months, he was literally doing without thinking whatever I was saying, right? And therefore, I don't think there is any right age to run a business. I think you need right conviction, you need sort of ability to take risks, you need the hustle, and then you need to figure out what you don't have and to figure out who else in the team will complement that, right? So I don't think I had at least bias around age. Did I have any bias? No, actually, I was fully sold. Like all my conversations with everyone, like seemed to suggest that this is a great place.
Any things that you unlearned?
मुझे लगता था कि मैं बहुत fast paced business growth से आया था, right? So 2M was the fastest brand 2000 crore in India. 10% growth, again, 2M days was very, very normal. But it's a progressive growth, right? You build distribution, etc. How tech for me and tech-led growth for me was actually very, very new, right? I've run a services company, BPO, but BPO is not the same, right? It's not. I think how products go from 0 to 100 and what do you need to do in terms of being ready, because these type of products don't give you that much opportunity also to course correct. FMCG में क्या होता है, गंदा प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च कर दोगे, 10 लोग खाएंगे, ठीक कर दोगे प्रोडक्ट. Here, if you launch a bad product, it can very quickly sort of
erode trust,
right? And I think that's something I had to sort of consciously learn. 90% right is okay, but unlike my previous sort of roles where 50% right is okay to test in the market, is a very conscious shift I had to make, right? 2 हफ्ता पहले मैं बोलता था कब लॉन्च होगा, अब मैं बोलता हूँ कोई बात नहीं, 2 हफ्ता डिले कर लो, अच्छा लॉन्च करना, right? So I think that's one big change. And I think the second change is generally working with a lot more younger folks. FMCG company was younger, but not like this, right? So here suddenly at 38, I'm I think the third oldest person in the top 50 people of the company, right? So, and sort of working with younger folk is sort of very, very different. It's also different from a point of view of they challenge you a lot more. Versus in FMCG, I would write something on the board and it will get done.
But यहाँ पे authority bias क्यों नहीं है फिर?
नहीं है. I think because a lot of the younger folks in the team we spend a lot of time with actually see this as their own company. Like many of them were like first 10 employees, first 20 employees. ठीक है, मैं senior हूँ, मैं CEO हूँ. Eventually, if I don't like what they say, I will say यही करो. But you have to understand where they come from. They come from, this is their company, right? And they will like call out a lot more around this is wrong. और ये ऐसे होना चाहिए. I think therefore it takes a bit more sort of change in approach on what you say and how you say it. लोग किसको क्या समझ आएगा, कैसे समझ आएगा, who to pull in sort of to make basically your decision better versus कि let's decide and the market will teach you anyway how to course correct, right? So I think a couple of those things are very, very different, but I think I realize a lot more things are common than they are different. And also being a big believer in कि काम कुछ भी कर लो, core remains the same, right? Ability to problem solve, ability to take market feedback, ability to course correct, ability to hire the best people. That that doesn't change depending on where you are.
Sasha, this would be a good to have your view on ki how to disagree, let's say with Sohail, who is like 15 years older to you, and also not to offend.
Yeah, so I think it's the simple answer to that would be the language of business. This is the thing. The merchants are saying this, the team is saying this. What should you do? So as long as I said the alignment on the overall objective is there, I don't think anyone will be offended over here, because everybody is he's unlearning, I am learning. Everybody is kind of meeting in the middle somewhere to meet the overall objective. And thankfully nobody has ever taken it that way, that why are these younger folks coming and saying these points, because generally with the tech and product kind of a company, the younger folks will be much closer to the audience, much closer to the experience, and will raise valid points. So by default, I think we've been hearing to a lot many younger folks about tech and product.
Well, what do you do when you switch off from work?
Lots of travel, lots of I used to play a lot of sports. I think Bharat mein man kara diya. No, I part of the reason was I used to live in Gurgaon, where we were in Madhyanagar. So a lot of time used to be like driving on the road only. But I read a fair bit. I like, again, lower pace, but I still probably read 25 books a year.
कैसे?
TV नहीं देखता यार.
No Netflix, nothing.
No, I don't even have subscription of anything.
See the age gap.
The only subscription I have is Hotstar because of cricket. I actually stopped watching TV when I was 24, 25.
Wow.
And I sleep 4 to 5 hours a day.
4 to 5 hours a day?
15 घंटे तो काम में निकल जाते हैं, but I think I end up using the rest of the time in when I'm not on vacation, planning vacations, reading a lot more, playing a sport once in a while. These days I play squash, थोड़ा बहुत, and I'm learning tennis. कुछ नया सीखने के लिए होना चाहिए in personal life. And then I spend a lot of time socializing with friends, so that's important for me to unwind.
And what would you, Sasha?
Again, I watch a lot of movies, TV shows, I travel, I do on road trips, socializing with friends, all of the same thing. Sports, I would like to explore more. I think I am not doing enough. I would like to play badminton more. Yeah.
साथ में जाया करो यार.
He plays squash, I play.
This was बहुत अलग game है. But I actually want to learn tennis. Like watched it all my life and been enamored by the sport.
So one is philosophically and other is numerically. How you think the next chapter of Bharat Pay, like 3 billion valuation पहुंच गया, right? 10 million merchants आ गए, इनके लिए अच्छे खासे products भी launch कर दिए, they are using on a daily basis.
First of all is sort of what can we do for merchants? That's sort of core. Today also we have, as I said, 1 crore merchants, but we've enabled loans for only 5 lakh. Right? I'm sure there's a lot more of them who need it, right? And we need to constantly become better at how to decide who can be lent to and who cannot be, right? So there's a core business which needs to keep on learning and keep on becoming better and better. I think the second part, I remember having these conversations very early day in my Bharat Pay tenure on what will merchant pay you for? Our thought at that time used to be merchant will pay you if you give him credit, of course, because he makes money off it. And the second thought used to be that merchant will pay you if you send him customers, because these shopkeepers really struggle from a point of view of acquiring new customers, especially against the e-commerce and the modern trade guys. I think the first one we've done a good job of. It needs to keep evolving. The second one we've not really done anything meaningful on. And now with our consumer leg of the business with payback and post-pay, I think we are at a place where we can solve that bridge, right? And I think that's sort of at least one big leap of faith we want to take. To decide what is the right time for it. Is lots of things always in the pipeline. But that's sort of one thing I want to do. I think, and then keep doing more of the same. Yeah, we are still scratching the surface. New products will keep coming. Some of them will scale, some of them will get killed. But just keep innovating, keep launching new products, figure out how do we become more and more helpful to the merchant. If you do that, rest will sort of take care of itself, right? I think there is a IPO at some stage to be done, but that's a reflection of the numbers and that's a reflection
that
of what
was my next question, right? When are you thinking? मतलब मुझे जो पर्सनली लगता है मैं आपको बताता हूँ, राइट? इंटरनेट बिजनेसेस गोइंग IPO at $10 billion valuation is a disaster for retail investors. That's a very personal thought. And why is that? Because retail investors can't imagine in India how they will 10x their money with a $10 billion company, right? $100 billion companies don't exist in India. Unilever is valued at $70 billion with like more than like $10 billion of the overall sales. So
Yeah.
मुझे लगता है जितना छोटा IPO चले जाओ यार उतना अच्छा है. Why not grow with the retailers?
No, I think it's a fair thought. Obviously, a lot of retail investors, especially the savvy retail investors, want to come into companies earlier and grow with them, right? And obviously, $10 billion becomes difficult to sort of doubling every year, right? At the same time, I think IPO we should do when you are IPO ready.
And what is that?
IPO ready for us, and again, it comes from a lot of learning of external markets, but more recently Indian markets. To us, IPO ready means the core business is making money. At the
Profit or revenue?
profit. Revenue, so of course, yeah. Revenue multiple ही तो लगता है. तो revenue तो होना चाहिए 0 into anything is 0. But the core business is making profit. I think because like good markets will reward sort of great growth even at loss, but you're not building a business for a good market. You're building a business for sustainability.
Yeah.
So it has to be able to go through sort of bad cycles and good cycles. And in bad cycles, everyone comes back to profit. People will not judge a tech business on the amount of profit it makes because they understand you're redeploying a lot of that profit back into keeping on growing at that rate. But you sort of prove that you can make money, because a lot of the question on the tech businesses tends to be that great service, but great consumer value proposition, but will they ever make money? It's a question which probably every tech business is asked for. If you can prove that you can do that, I think that's sort of, to me, IPO ready. And once you've proven that, I think it's still a great opportunity for retail investors to come in because they know the sustainability of the company. Unfortunately, for tech businesses, that only comes at a particular scale. It can't come too early. And therefore, I would find it incredibly tough to find really good, fast-growing tech businesses which are able to IPO at $1 billion. But for us, we want to be IPO ready. Our intent is to do IPO because we don't believe there are sort of large-scale private equity investors which can make a $100 billion company. There are only examples of $100 billion companies in India are all public, and therefore, eventually public has to be the answer. Timing, etc., we'll figure out. But right now, our thought is 2 saal, 1.5 saal, post 24 elections. I'm a big believer in government will be stable, and that's always great for markets, right? Again, less worried about timing, more worried. We spend a lot more time on thinking, okay, how will we get IPO ready? Rest all is a button, yaar. Jab banana hai DRHP, file kar denge, right? So, but we would not do a public offer before sort of turning green on a P&L point of view.
Also, we don't have a target valuation in mind, or some valuation we're chasing for. I think it's a function of market at that point of time when it can eventually anyway grow. So we're not looking at it from that point of view that we need to give returns to investor this X that X.
ये तो बहुत डिबेट करते हैं. Valuation से तो फर्क पड़ता है ना when you're selling.
Yeah.
If you're not selling, valuation doesn't matter. Once you go public, market will get it to the right valuation, whatever they feel is right. So 6 महीने बाद अपने प्राइस पे आना ही है, तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है किस प्राइस पे लॉन्च कर रहे हो? As long as you can ensure retail investors don't lose money or hopefully make reasonable money, it's a great place because it creates then a positive spiral about the stock, right? So we would consciously err on the side of caution and leaving money on the table whenever we do the IPO versus like sort of trying to chase a IPO number.
Even in our private rounds, right? Our first round was just 20 CR valuation and last round was just 20,000 CR. The amount of returns they've made. In every round, we have been conservative in evaluating the valuation. Even in the last round, we offered a valuation lesser than the term sheet said to just leave money.
But valuation doesn't matter. So maybe we will be lesser than 10, maybe we will be more. But we will price it in a way that every retail investor feels there is value on the table.
What are some of the things that you feel कि यार अगर सिर्फ फिनटेक में ना होते तो ये चीज़ें भी कर सकते थे?
I'm excited by consumer tech a lot. I've also been an early investor in consumer businesses, D2C, like when I had done my first investment. लोग बोलते थे D2C बनेगा नहीं, बनेगा तो 100 करोड़ का बनेगा, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं बन सकता. Now we have D2C companies which are like sort of doing 1,500 to 2,000 crores in revenue, right? So, and then sort of some of the other consumer tech journeys. That's sort of one area I would have done probably a lot more in. The second place I feel very excited about is, unfortunately, crypto ने उसका नाम खराब कर दिया है. But the blockchain by itself is such a massive technology, and what it can do, like theoretically, even in the fintech space, it can really change the game on cross-border payments. Right? All these companies, like $100 billion companies, can get disrupted overnight if sort of the economies of the world come together and sort of make Bitcoin-based exchange. So I think that's something I'm very excited about, and I believe it has use cases in fintech, it has use cases in consumer tech. I think a lot of folks are launching influencer management, fan engagement type stuff on the back of it. Seems very exciting. I think these are the two spaces I would have personally gone deeper into. I hear a lot of SaaS, but मुझे आता नहीं है तो मैं दूर है.
I think the more of the same, the Web3 that is coming up, right? The exciting thing about it is that right now the three-party ecosystem all can get converted into a direct two-party. And the element of trust, right? There is a leap of faith in everything. You order something from Flipkart, you order something from...
Web3 में डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर की जरूरत नहीं है.
Yeah, and factor of trust or the leap of faith goes away. So that is pretty exciting. But very nascent stage, globally. So I would like to wait it out till something, the foundations are laid. And if I would not be here, I would be working on that.
Would Bharat Pay someday launch something on blockchain?
हम अगले 3 आइडिया से ज्यादा तो हम फोकस ही नहीं करते. तो अगले 3 आइडिया में नहीं है ब्लॉकचेन. We can only say that. But it's an interesting space, and we do believe that there is applicability in financial services, right? So I wouldn't rule it out, but nothing is on the card.
But again, depends on regulatory stance in India, because we would not be comfortable doing it, without any direction from is India accepting that or not accepting that.
Thank you so much. It's been such a awesome conversation. मतलब one of the best in my life, and sitting across two such accomplished founders.
Pleasure.
Same here.
Our pleasure.